Welcome to the Envelope's Emmy Contender Series. I'm Glenn Whipp. Today we're talking to Pete Holmes, the writer, co-creator, or creator,
yeah.
star, editor too, maybe?
I do help with the edit, but I'm not credited. I'm okay with that.
All right. HBO's excellent series, Crashing.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me, Glenn. 2 N's.
2 N's.
Whip. 2 P's. I'm starstruck. That's amazing.
I understand that you just recently got married.
I did not too long ago. It'll be a year in October. What month is it? We don't know.
You're in April right now, so we're talking a year and a half then?
No,
Just a
it
half
will
year.
have almost been a year. I'm a
October.
newlywed. You can still
Yeah,
say
yeah.
you're newlywed. Under a year. But we've lived together for almost 4 years before that.
Yeah.
So, we were just talking off camera about how I went to a Christian liberal arts college. So, technically the term is we lived in sin for 4 years. Then we got married, 3.5, 4 years. And so, no surprises. We got married, and it's just kind of this is the person that I know.
Right.
I don't know if you grew up this way. I grew up in that tradition that getting married would make everything kind of technicolor and different. And the first time I got married, which is, the emotional inspiration for Crashing, I remember the morning after my honeymoon waking up and going water's still wet and red is still red and the car still needs fuel. Everything was kind of normal. It was one of the, kind of the first cracks maybe in my faith it wasn't necessarily this meaningful liturgical ceremony. Although I would contend that my second service was. It felt much more rich. The less Christian I've become, the more in touch with Christ I feel. And that sort of holy feeling of something like getting married.
I kind of feel like that's my experience and a lot of people's experience
Isn't
with
it?
religion too.
Glenn, 2 N's.
Um,
I get so excited to hear that. I never tire of meeting people who grew up like us and lost it at some point. I don't want to assume, but lost it in the way that it was presented to them, but then ended up discovering it. And I don't want to get too heady here, but I think that's kind of what Jesus is hinting at when he's you have to lose your life to gain it. It's all kind of backwards. It's not necessarily in the hour and a half at church that you find God. It might be in a divorce that you find God. It might be in a death or a loss or a tragedy or losing your job. God might be hiding there.
Yeah.
Now I'm just getting theological, but I'd rather talk about this than Crashing. I do love talking about Crashing, but
It's funny because I'm friendly with Judd Apatow.
yeah.
I messaged him on Twitter
Yes.
an hour ago saying, any funny, embarrassing ways I could, ask Pete
Yeah.
a question. And then he sent me a thing, and then I was because otherwise I'm just going to talk to him about God for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how wide range of, wide appeal that is.
I don't know either, but I keep being surprised that the more I talk about it, just as often as I might get stopped in an airport because somebody liked my comedy special, someone might come up and be
Right.
hey, thanks for talking about God and not being embarrassed.
Yeah.
Let me tell you this. When I was in church, we used to sing, I am not ashamed of the gospel. You know that song? People would
that one.
belt, it's I am not ashamed of the gospel of Jesus Christ. Some big woman would belt it out and would all cry. And I think it was because we were kind of embarrassed. You know what I mean?
Right.
Nobody sings, I'm not embarrassed of ice cream. You know what I mean? You're getting up there and being I'm not embarrassed, damn it. And it's so refreshing to have grown into a person who actually isn't embarrassed to talk about faith. That's what's kind of compelling, potentially.
So when you're singing the song, it's almost like you're trying to convince yourself.
That's how I felt.
That you're not embarrassed.
Well, when you think that everybody who doesn't think, the contents of your brain don't match the contents of your brain of your neighbor, that person's going to be punished. That is, you should be embarrassed of that. I don't want to be too divisive here, but if you feel uncomfortable with that, you're not alone. That's all I'll say, is that you're not alone. But there are a lot of people that might love the mystery or love God that might not be okay with the idea that Gandhi is in hell. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
That's an absurd proposition.
Well, I think that's one of the things that really distinguishes the show is both you're presenting somebody of faith in a recognizable way.
Yeah.
You're also presenting atheists in a respectful, atheists being 99.9% of, I don't want to
It's almost 100% of comedians. Is that what you were going to say?
Yeah.
Every
I
comedian.
didn't want to paint with a broad brush there, but
You couldn't find a brush broad enough to
Yeah.
paint the atheism count of comedians.
yeah.
But it's been one of the passions of my life is like Penn Jillette was on season 2 of Crashing.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was one of my favorite things that we shot because he just explained elegantly and beautifully why he was an atheist. And then it kind of is quietly on my podcast. I talk to him longer. My podcast is called You Made It Weird if people want to hear. And we always kind of discover that sometimes it does just come down to a vocabulary. We might talk about nothingness or the void or the mystery. Penn Jillette thinks I'm an atheist, for example. He thinks because I don't think of like a Zeus-style god who's mad at me.
Sitting on the throne.
Exactly,
Yes.
the sky god, the throne sky god. I used to
long
believe,
beard.
Of course, I pictured literally the Burger King king. I don't know if you remember the Burger King king.
Of course.
That was my god. And because I don't believe
His
in
beard
that.
was neatly trimmed, though.
I know, I like a more clean god. I don't want my god.
White beard.
That's a little too, what are you, napping all day? We got things to do, God. Trim the beard, help us out.
Yeah.
So anyway, a lot of those conversations lead to discovering that we believe in the same thing, which fundamentally is a mystery. And a lot of times religious things can be used as tools to help us dance with the mystery. That's what I like.
It's funny, though, because on that episode, if I'm remembering right, Pete, the character, goes into a bit of a funk after that. Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of the impetus for the whole season.
Right.
Is, you know, he makes sense. My character says, you know, you're making a lot of sense. And it's really nice, the place that I'm at spiritually now is I agree. Penn does make a lot of sense, and I agree with almost everything that he says. In fact, it's hard to find something we disagree about. But when you are raised fundamentalist and you believed God said it, I believe it, that does it. The Bible is literally true. The Garden of Eden is somewhere in Africa. Heaven is somewhere else. If you die, you go there. If you're good, all that stuff.
Yeah.
It gets shook by somebody like Penn, somebody who is beautiful and compassionate and present, yet doesn't believe in anything that you believe that promised to deliver you into the present, into beauty. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you talk to this guy and you're like, I thought you were supposed to be selling me cocaine right now, but instead you're offering me more redemption than I found on Sunday. And I think that's really exciting. And then of course the episode I think that we're kind of talking about, the Emmy consideration, is the Artie episode. What do you do when you have a friend, and you know, being in comedy, I have a lot of friends that are troubled and that keep running into their demons. And it's very challenging. I think a lot of times something that I can run into myself is thinking of God as a good mood or good fortune, that you're almost worshiping your own ecstasy or your own lucky streak. So how do you reconcile with someone like Artie, who in a very moving scene, and by the way, Emmy consideration, I mean, it's all about Artie, to me, is I love his honesty and his vulnerability. Because on a lot of Judd Apatow productions, people improvise, but Artie's improvising about but his father falling off of a roof and becoming a quadriplegic. These heartbreaking improvs. So it's not just like gags. Artie's offering his soul. And the response to that, it was personally and then with people that watched it, was profound. And I think I hope that that's one of the keys, is not keeping these things hidden or being ashamed or being embarrassed, but like offering them in solidarity to people.
Yeah.
A lot of people that are suffering and dealing with addiction and whatever it might be, or know someone who has addiction, and offering that in a comedy. I mean, that's also a big credit to Judd. This episode was his idea. I don't want to say I'm a coward, but I kind of like, just like my stand-up, I like to kind of keep it loose. And Judd's like, look, we have a cast member who's struggling. And in real life, we deal with Artie and we try and help Artie as much as we can. And Judd was like, you got to address it. At a certain point, you have to address it.
That was a really powerful episode.
I appreciate that.
What kind of response did you get to that episode where he's so frankly talking about his struggles?
I was worried.
And he's in rehab right now, right?
I'm not positive. I think he's awaiting some sort of
sentencing too. Yeah.
Yeah. So I personally am, pulling for him and the right thing to happen.
He's
and all
so
this
good
sort
in
of
the
stuff.
show.
This is the torment of having somebody that you love and that you care about and watching them so actively deal with that. But that is the response, is that people are. I was worried that people might think we were exploiting him. So every opportunity I had, I made it very clear that we called Artie. We were like, do you want to do this, and how far do you want to go with it? And he is an open book. He wants people to know. He says it in the episode. He's like, if I could just go back and stop myself from trying heroin, that would have solved it. So the idea that something like this could stop someone like young Artie from doing that, that makes him happy. And it makes me happy that people seem to agree that could be one of the outcomes of something like this.
Well, I think that's one of the things, particularly this season on the show. You say he was an open book. I think comedians
Our open books.
to be a good one.
Absolutely.
Right? And so this season, you're seeing Pete, the character, finding his voice.
Yep.
And you, when you started out, like, you wouldn't really talk about religion, would you?
Or anything. My divorce. I didn't talk
yeah.
about anything. Because, growing up like we did, I keep bringing it back up, it was, you're trying to set an example. You're almost like playing a character. So the idea of someone like Bill Burr, who's great on the show, or Artie, or Sarah Silverman, these are all people that have made peace with all of the sides of their personality. Where one of the things that's a little bit, I don't want to say disturbing, but challenging about my character, who's me, basically. I'd like to think I've evolved since then, but like certainly I can relate to
you
this.
like about 10 years ago.
Exactly. And 10 years is a long time to do inner work. And at that point, I really had the thought that like appearing holy, appearing kind, appearing lovely was the same as being holy, kind, or loving. When really, the mess is where the work is, and the confusion is where transformation is, and brokenness. That's why the show is called Crashing. He crashes on couches, but it's not called flourishing. It's called crashing, because that's where the real transformation happens. This is so heady. If Judd was here, he'd be kicking me. He really would. He gets so, we're bad.
You need to be funnier.
Yes,
right now.
I should say something. What can I say?
Well, and it's
How
funny
dirty can
because
I be?
it's like when I asked him the questions, like, what should I ask him? He says, he's funny when he talks about this. He's funny when he talks about this. He had a really, just in honor of Judd, if you're watching right now, we'll say, he told me that you had a really interesting marriage proposal.
I did. That is funny. It's funny that you say, Glenn, because I was thinking about that this morning. Anybody watching? I proposed to my wife. She mentioned in the early stages of dating that she always wanted to go on a hot air balloon. So here's a tip. You can seem really thoughtful if you just write things down. You're a journalist. Write it down.
Put in a little note in your phone, maybe.
Exactly. I have a folder in my phone called gift ideas, surprise ideas. I just write it down, hot air balloon. 3 years later, I'm feeling like it's time to get married. That sounds horribly unromantic. I want to get married. You know what I mean? We want to get married. We want to have a family.
Time is right.
Exactly, the time is right. So we drive to Santa Barbara. I don't tell her what we're doing, and then I reveal that we're going on a hot air balloon, which seems like a great idea to, propose.
Yeah.
Well, you don't.
It's like the cliche romantic gesture.
Sometimes cliche things are okay.
Sure.
So you're just like, let's just be obvious. But what I didn't consider on the most important day of my life, in my one jacket and the ring in my pocket, is there's another guy. There's another guy
in the basket.
The basket is the size of your chair.
Right.
And look at me. I am a Tempur-Pedic mattress. And I get in this basket. It's pretty much full. Yeah. Then poor little Valerie gets in. She's small. And then this strange man in a Carhartt jacket. He looks like a Ben Affleck character. It has scuffs on it. He's got a hat.
Had he showered that morning?
Well, not by my summation. I mean, like it was questionable. And he's right here. The whole time he's this close, I can feel the heat of his breath and the tickle of his whiskers, and I'm nervous, and he's operating the thing, and this is completely true. I don't like it either, but he kept calling things gay. I don't know this man. This is the most romantic day of my life, and he's like, that's Janet Jackson's ranch, gay.
So he's not talking about gay in the really old sense of the word, we're having a gay old time.
I was trying to have a gay old time.
Yes.
In the way that children that lead a wheel down the street with a stick might say it. But instead, this guy's going, I got fired from that deli, it's friggin' gay. And I'm like, sir.
He's really killing the mood.
Exactly, but he pilots a balloon.
Yes, so I mean.
Relax.
You're right.
Easy on the gays. You pilot a rainbow balloon over the wine country of Santa Barbara going 0. Like, maybe relax. And then I got so nervous because this guy's being weird that I didn't even propose. I took out the ring and he's watching and I'm like, Valerie, I would be honored to call you my wife. And that's the end. I didn't propose. You're supposed to propose and say, will you? But I just said, it would be great.
Did the balloon guy have a comment on this?
I thought he might
And
do a
just-
couple celebratory
yeah.
toots, because she did say yes, even though I didn't ask. No toots. He just goes,
Call your proposal gay?
no. I was waiting for that. He's like,
Possible
you're going to marry a
sense
woman?
humor, yeah.
It's gay.
Yeah.
It's very gay. You're going to have
You're doing it on a balloon? Ah.
sex with a lady? Very gay. On a balloon. There was a moment of silence. You know, you're hovering in the air. And he just goes, a lot of girls say no. And then he goes, one girl said yes in the basket. When we landed, said no. And he leaned in and goes, clever girl. I was like, thank you, sir. I will tell this story ad nauseum. And he doesn't watch the internet.
Right. No, he doesn't sound like somebody who's going to be.
No.
Yeah.
He's somewhere ruining someone else's engagement.
Yeah.
But Valerie's a sport. That's what you want. You want like if the girl, the woman, the person can laugh at that. We landed and we started taking notes. Like we knew a story had just happened. That's who you marry. Not the girl that was like, that wasn't what I wanted.
It wasn't the ideal proposal,
No.
but great bit for your routine.
And that's life, man.
Yeah.
I mean, if I hadn't been divorced, no crashing. If I hadn't had a weird engagement, I wouldn't have anything to talk about with you.
Yeah.
Well, that's not true. We'd be talking about Open Door.
We would be talking about our evangelical Christian college experiences.
There's so many more of us than we even think. It's
Yeah.
so weird.
Well, but yeah, we're not.
We can't.
One of the things that on this season, though, to swing it back to God, because I know we haven't talked enough religion in this, but one of the things that, a big theme of this season, though, is that Pete, the character, kind of being afraid of God. I don't do stuff because I'm afraid of God. I'm afraid of God, so I hide my feelings.
Yep.
And so it's kind of going through life with the perspective of like looking over your shoulder, being afraid to piss off God.
It's just a waiting room and a trial to see if you go to heaven. So what's the point? You know what I mean? Why rock the boat? Don't go. I literally didn't go to a Soundgarden concert because I was like, he has some lyrics that are,
Right.
I don't know. So just
Is that when you were in college?
Yes.
Yeah.
So just opt out. Just don't
Yeah.
go. Play it safe. It's a little bit crass, but it's true. I literally wouldn't, can I say masturbate?
Yes.
I wouldn't masturbate because I was afraid Jesus would come back while I was
While
doing
in
it.
the act.
And Artie riffed, he was like, that would be terrible timing. He's right. But who knows? You know what I mean? Like you just kind of live, like what if he comes out of a cloud on a golden sheep and you got your ham in your sandwich?
But that was one of the big things. If you grew up in the church, no one knows the time or the hour.
Right.
That was like hammered in. So it was a real powerful deterrent to doing
They got you, man.
sinful things.
It's a beautiful marketing strategy. Is you're sinful, but you're born sinful. So even as a baby, you're bad. You're nursing too much or something, and then the urgency. Like if I'm trying to sell you a car, I need to tell you that next week that car is going to be more expensive or something. I need to put a clock on it. So what we all have is that you never know when you're going to die, and this is something that we tell children. You're born bad. You never know when you're going to die. Believe or you're going to burn, and that is the trauma of that. I know it might have been well-intentioned, and I still have a pretty good heart for the church, and I try not to have too much spite or anything.
Right.
But like it is traumatic, and what we're seeing on Crashing is a guy who has all the same feelings. So the finale of Crashing, there's a roast, and Pete is good at roasting his girlfriend. Because just like he's surprisingly
to
good
himself,
and he's speaking off the cuff,
which is just, by the way, such a bad idea. Like that they
terrible
were
idea.
both in that roast.
and that actually happens. I've been at roasts where people dating or roasting each other, and that's what Jed and I talked about. I was like, well, I would probably break up with somebody if they did that, because it's all about how it appears. Like you said these things, and then I said these things. So I think he's breaking up with her because she brought out in him some of that bile, some of that vitriol that we all have. This is one of my big passions, is like, I don't care how great you are or holy you are or wonderful you are. Even a nun pours cream in her coffee sometimes and goes, Becky is a bitch. You know what I mean? Just for a second. We are not our thoughts. We don't control our thoughts. We're stuck in these meat puppets and we have these weird flare-ups. Maybe it was gas, but she thought Becky is a bitch. And that's okay. We're here, now I feel we're here to play the game. Okay, you had that thought. what does it mean? What are you going to do with it? Like, does it lead to this way or does it lead the ugly way? But it's not about acting like you don't have them. Mm-hmm. And this is what makes, going back to Bill and Artie and Sarah, these great comedians are people that have reconciled with that. Whereas the people who are kind of purporting the gospel of reconciliation aren't safe. A pastor can't go up on Sunday, my heart breaks, and say, I don't really believe today. I read the news. I walked past all these photos on your walls. Beautiful photos.
Yeah.
Hard to take all of the world in and go, everything's okay. But you can't say that. Mm-hmm. And I hope that we're on the precipice of a new type of spirituality where a pastor not only can but should say, how good would you feel if someone dragged you to church and the pastor was like, it just doesn't make sense today. And I feel that way sometimes. It's just not there. Oh, God, thank you. But I grew up in the Mickey Mouse tradition where they were a mascot. You know, they put on the suit and they had the toothy grin and they go, everything's great. Hey, buddy. Hey, 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 hey. And would be going like, who is this guy? And that's
I like that you just stopped yourself.
Saying from.
Well, yeah,
Can
because no. I thought you stopped yourself because you knew. Because
yes.
We're still
not for Jesus.
We're still a family newspaper that maybe runs Family Circus. We were talking about that in its comics page.
Yes.
I think we still do.
Strike that. I forgot to say off the record.
Somebody will, yeah. Somebody will strike it.
It's not the worst thing Facebook's ever done.
But no, not at all. Yeah, it's like way down the list.
No.
Are we going to see Allie again?
Oh, absolutely. Jamie, I'm
good.
I'm so glad. The feedback that I see is people love Artie, people love Allie, and it's interesting to live in a time where you get that. It's not letters being sent to Paramount that know somebody. We look at the tweets. Judd looks at the tweets. Like Artie and Allie and with Jamie, we all kind of have our finger on what's working. What do people want? What do people expect? Do we go with that? Do we go against it? I'm not saying it's interactive.
Yeah.
But you do have some responsibility to give people what they might enjoy. I like the show to be good. But Jamie is one of my dear friends. We've been friends for over a decade. We actually dated. We recreated our relationship on the show. And that's why I think you can feel it a little bit more than other characters possibly.
But you could go anywhere with season 3. You could do a big time jump.
Yep.
We had one reader ask if Steve, will crashing go to L.A.? Will crashing ever go to L.A.? Would you crash on, say, Mark Maron's couch?
How fun would that be? We wouldn't even have to script it.
Yeah.
Just get a couple GoPros and let Mark, crap on him for a while. He's so funny. I love Mark. I would love to bring the show to L.A. That is definitely where I'm seeing it. It's interesting when you have the thread of your real life kind of going through. It's not that everything's real. Everything's inspired by something real from me or the writers. But like the idea that when you come to LA, you do start over. I did have to find friends and stuff to help me find places to live and get set up in real life in New York. And then when you go to LA, you really do begin again. Mm-hmm. You really are sleeping on someone's couch because you come out here for pilot season or something like that. And that's one of the things that I think makes stand-up so interesting is there are all these kind of, not humiliating, but humiliating experiences where you begin again.
Right.
You might make it in Boston, but then you go to New York and you have to make it again. Then you go to LA and nobody cares. Nobody cares that you won the Boston Comedy Festival when you get to LA. And maybe they don't care in New York either. You have to keep proving yourself with a community and with a style and with a climate of audience and stuff. So it's really interesting. There's no end to the refreshing of the process, and not in a bad way, but the humiliations of stand-up.
Humiliations are funny.
What's funny? I like the show Entourage. I'm just saying, if Pete just starts succeeding, it becomes Entourage.
Right.
And we've already done Entourage. There was 9 seasons in a movie.
So his success will be a little bit more incremental than, say, yours was, Pete, the real Pete.
The real Pete, we are speeding it up.
Yeah.
If there's one criticism I get from comedians, and it's always with love, is that we go too fast.
But how could you just sit on a season of Pete, failing at
the
open mic
is
night?
You absolutely cannot.
Yeah.
If we had a 24-hour news network, maybe we could just show it, but it's excruciating. And then why watch our show? Why not just do stand-up? If you want to know all the minutiae, just do it.
Yeah.
Like, I promise you, the same humiliations are waiting for anyone who does it. But like Pete in the first season, my character gets a warm-up gig. Really,
That was great. You were really good warm-up guy.
I appreciate. I did warm-up for the Daily Show, which was
did you?
a real thing.
Yeah.
And that was a wonderful experience. And a lot of what happened on the show actually happened to me. Like, I actually was doing crowd work. You know, that's all you do. You just talk to people and kind of riff. And I start talking to this older woman in like the second row. Jon Stewart's desk is behind me. And I just felt the room get cold. Like, everything just, the air got sucked out. And I'm like, what is going on? And all I said to this woman, she had to be in her 80s. I was like, thanks for taking a break from knitting to come to the show. People are kind of chuckling.
Yeah.
I make a couple other old jokes and I just move on. I find out afterwards that it was Jon Stewart's mother in the audience.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, you could have told the guy
Tip me off.
that talks
Right.
exclusively to the audience for my job. John's backstage, he's throwing a football before the show, and I'm making fun of his mother. Of course, he's a comedian first, a son second, so everything was fine. But on Crashing, we had Pete get fired for doing the same thing to Rachel Ray's mom. Who was,
When you say doing the same thing, it was just a little bit
worse.
Yeah, but he was in kind of a scattered place in his mind because he.
See,
yeah,
you're
I
good
mean,
at-
there was reason why,
that's
but still.
my hope is that people will understand, because that's all Jed. Jed is like, well, the ex-wife of the guy who had sex with your wife should be in the audience and it should throw you. And Pete says something kind of questionably, like, not racist, but racially charged. He kind of goes like, I'm tripping, boo, which is kind of offensive because he's sweating.
Yeah.
And there's nothing worse than like a sweating bad comedian. And then he tells Rachel Ray's mom something that I can't say on a decent network like this.
Okay, a decent network.
Not Facebook.
Yeah.
But the Los Angeles Times.
So there is, I guess, what's called a lightning round.
Oh.
That we're asking all these people. This is the first one I've done this Emmy season.
Okay.
So, so lightning round. I guess the answers are going to be short.
I can do that.
Like, okay. So what was the last show you binge watched?
Oh, Wild Wild Country. Unbelievable.
Okay. If you could go back and be on any TV show, what would it be?
Three's Company.
I'm
Remake.
sorry, I can't see that. A lot of people watch TV to unwind. What do you do to unwind?
I watch Mad Men obsessively.
What do you do now? What do you know now that you wish you knew on your first acting job?
Do less.
Have you ever been fired from an acting job?
No.
Okay. Which Golden Girls character do you most identify with? Dorothy, Rose, Blanche, or Sophia?
The sassy old one.
This is the first time I've done this, and I had to tell the people here that I've never actually watched Golden Girls.
Me neither. I
So-
feel bad, but there's a lot of things that.
Yeah, I
have some
mean,
blind
I'm
spots.
not no judgment
Yeah,
on
I'm
Golden
just
Girls.
rewatching Mad Men too many times
yeah,
to
yeah.
go. I don't know. Maybe I should. Wait, you know how I feel about TV? What do I work for you?
Right.
You haven't seen Golden Girls? Oh, I'm sorry. When was that due? Get out of my face.
Maybe Golden Girls was on at a time when you were at Gordon College,
Yeah,
and
they seemed
they're a little risque.
They were.
You know,
This is how
they're
I
not
pick-
supposed to be talking about those things.
Aren't they like divorced or something?
Right. That's not good.
See, I'm making a show about a divorced guy that I probably wouldn't have liked when I was young.
Yeah.
So that guy who didn't watch Golden Girls then made a show about divorce. So really, my show should be called Golden Guy. That's my submission.
Okay.
And it's an honor to be considered for Emmys. See, I'm not even nominated. I'm saying it's an honor to be considered to be nominated. That's a new level of gratitude. Or
It is.
groveling.
We should go through life with that with
It's
that
already
attitude
nice.
of gratitude.
Well, Jimmy Kimmel tweeted, I hereby nominate Artie and Pete for an Emmy. And I literally just wrote a note. I was like, I need to send Jimmy Kimmel a gift. He's obsessed with charging his iPhone, so I'm going to get him like a nice charger, like a long. Apple's always deal with that,
Yeah.
letting us know where we are in their hearts. Go charge your phone. I'm going to get him a nice long one.
You could get him like a gift certificate for a hot air balloon ride.
I could do that. I'd say, would you like to ruin a romantic day with a guy with halitosis? Deal.
You've got the guy.
I know just the man.
Thanks for coming in.
Glenn with 2 N's, what a pleasure. So that's our clock. We did
That's
it.
our clock. And for more of these Emmy conversations, you can watch them at latimes.com. And thanks for joining us today.